Hey everyone, before we get started with the video, I just wanted to let you know that my annual Black Friday sale is coming up. It will be held from the 26th of November 2021 through the 29th of November 2021. So this is the single sale that I do each year, and it's the one time a year that you're able to get BP Autosports products, being manifolds, being merge collectors, catch can, coolant overflow combos, fill pots, and what have you on sale. And the sale will go live on the 26th of November at www.bpautosports.net. The website is linked in the description below, and I look forward to the orders that you all place and look forward to building parts for you. So now that bit of housekeeping is out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with the video. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So I have a little bit of spare time in the middle of the week, and I figured we would start this week's video early. We're going to work on the steering column some more. In the comments of one of my previous videos, Rick Schultz mentioned that it would be advantageous to implement a steering column extension into the column itself. Because if we look and see, the column protrudes farther into the cabin than it really needs to, and it makes ingress and egress into and out of the cabin, respectively, a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. So what a steering column extension does, you effectively move the quick disconnect hub, or quick release hub rather, down the column farther, and you build an extension piece that bolts to the wheel and to that quick release hub, effectively being able to remove more of the steering column and making ingress and egress more easily attainable for a car like this, especially with a 25 series cage in it. So I had looked up DIY options for it, had looked up pre-made options, and finally realized that I have enough materials here that I can build one that suits my needs exactly, as opposed to relying on another company to determine sizes and what have you. So I came over here, and I have the hub off of all of my fasteners screwed out of it, and I went ahead and I took measurements of ID being the center circle here, OD being the outside circle there, and then depth being from the top of the inside circle to the face of the bottom circle here. So if that all makes sense, really what I did is just dimension all of this so I know what size holes that I need to drill and what have you. So what we are going to do is to build an aluminum steering column extension, as I have a ton of extra aluminum here, and I figured I might as well use it for a project like this. So I guess we can go ahead now and get materials assembled and consolidated on the bench there and begin figuring out how we need to build this thing. I went ahead and I consolidated the materials here on the bench. We have some 3/16 sheet metal and a piece of 2 1/4 inch aluminum tubing that is extremely dirty. It has been around here for probably years at this point without being used, but today is its lucky day as it gets to be put into service. So before I really get going with this, I need to figure out what the length that I can make this extension ends up being. So all that I'll do for that is, I guess, measure from the face of the dash here out to the end of our splined hub here. That will give me overall length, and I can figure out from there how long I want the extension to be and what have you. So let me get that measurement real quick, and then we can get going with building our extension. there we have our column extender. So it's welded on the inside, on both sides, and then stitch welded on the outside, leaving enough room to fit a nut on this side here and that side there. So came out awesome, but there is one little issue that has an easy solution, thankfully. So with the welds on the inside, if we place the extender, or actually we'll do it this way, it'll be a little bit easier to see. Put it on there, and the welds on the inside don't allow the deal to sit down the whole way on there. So it's right at 1/8 of an inch gap between this flange and this flange. So I'll just make a simple little 1/8 inch aluminum spacer that'll go in between those. I already need to get new fasteners, so this doesn't put me any farther back that way. And I can make that, everything will be good, and we will be cooking with fire at that point. So let me go ahead, I'll make that spacer. I'll do it off camera since you guys already saw me make these flanges, and it's literally the exact same thing. But I'll go ahead and do that, and we can proceed from there. With a few modifications, we now have the column extender completed. So I went ahead and I put the 1/8 inch spacer on the bottom side and welded around the bottom flange and the spacer just to tie everything together, because there is no need for it to be multiple pieces. Beyond that, I went ahead and I capped the top side, so that way as you're sitting in the driver's seat driving the car, you're not looking down the steering column into the ethers. I figured that would class it up a little bit, and I'm very happy with how it looks. And this will end up being powder coated black of some sort, but if we go ahead and put it here, now we are installed on the, I guess, the aluminum portion of the hub here. It fits nicely, and it will work very well to make my life a little bit easier as I'm trying to get in and out of this car. So today we are not going to pull the column, cut it, and all of that. I will do that in the next couple of days. I really just had a little bit of time to knock this out today, but I will catch up with you guys then. We will get that project knocked out, and then we can start looking at what we need in regards to plumbing components to move this project forward. We are back to install, or I guess modify, the steering column and install the steering wheel and the new column extension that we built. If you remember, or I guess as you saw shortly ago in this video, we went ahead and built this nice aluminum steering column extension. I got all of my hardware for it, everything's bolted together. I did that off camera as it isn't incredibly exciting to watch me tighten 10 bolts down, but I'll show you guys exactly what we have going on fastener wise. So we went ahead, and these are all 1032 fasteners with nylocks and washers. On the steering wheel side, pretty self-explanatory that you can see the 5 fastener heads there, back side there, and I wanted to go ahead, and I had to wait a couple of days to get longer fasteners as I wanted full thread engagement on these nuts. The hub side, the fasteners probably could have been a little bit shorter, but I'd rather have them be too long than too short for an instance like this. So what we need to do now is, we know that the length of our column extension is right around 7 inches. So I need to pull the steering column out, cut 7 inches out of the outer body of it, as well as the inside steering shaft column itself. At that point, I can re-weld the spline section onto the steering column that connects it to the U-joint that connects to the steering shaft, and then we will be all set and good to go with are 7 inches worth of removable column, as opposed to having the column end right here, making it a little bit cumbersome for ingress and egress from the vehicle. So with that being said, let me go ahead, tripod you guys, and I can get this column pulled out, start cutting, start modifying. So now that we are in here and have everything installed, it fits flawlessly. I am in the exact position that I wanted to be seated wise, and this is the exact position that I wanted the wheel in. Now the math, it should have worked out, and in fact it did. All that we were doing was trimming 7 inches out of the column sections to counteract the 7 inches that we have for the column extension. But we are exactly where we were with the column at its full length, and now all I have to do is pull the quick release hub and set the wheel out of the way, and then I have all this room right here that I can get in and out of the car very easily, or as easily as I can climbing through a jungle gym. And that is especially important should anything ever happen with this car mid-pass, engine blow up, fire ensue, what have you, that I need to be able to get in and out of this car as easily and as quickly as possible, as I don't particularly want to become barbecued. I don't want to be part of a fire myself. As fun as that does sound, I think I will hold off on that for a little while. So since we are in here and we are this far with the column and everything now, why don't we go ahead and figure out how we're going to mount the column to get this project 100% wrapped up. So like I showed before with this column, put this on here. To be able to see the race pack I would like to, the column has to essentially move into the upper clockwise quadrant of this hole right here. So I'll need to pull the column back out and go in with a Dremel or something along those lines to make this hole a little bit larger in that top right-hand corner of what we have going on here. Once I get the wheel in the position that I want it to be in, then I can come in, just remove my billet bezel, and come in and figure out what tabs and everything I'm going to use to tie this column into the existing substructure under the dash, get all of that squared away, and before too long we'll have this column mounted. It won't be sitting like a wet noodle in here, and then that will be one additional thing solidified and one step closer to completion. I have the first 2 brackets made for the steering column mount for the Supra, and while these are cooling off, I wanted to just give a little bit of insight as to why builds like this take so long. So we have one of the mounting nuts right here, and it looks like a normal, it's an M10-125 flange nut. However, if we look on the back side, you can see a pretty aggressive chamfer there. Now I had to put that chamfer on this nut, and the point that I'm getting at is when you are building not just a car to this scope, but any custom project, there are always unforeseen circumstances, roadblocks, what have you, that end up extending the timeline of a build like this. Now, this one was pretty simple. I was able to chamfer this nut in order to make it fit on a little one of these studs that isn't threaded the whole way down its shaft. I had to chamfer this to get it to clear a little shoulder that stud has. However, I was under the impression that I could just go in and thread the nut on, and figured out that was not the case with the thickness that I used for these two tabs. So, one or two of these instances, not a big deal, but when you're rebuilding an entire car or building an entire car, there are more than a few isolated instances like this. It's almost every single part that you build, everything that you touch. Hardly anything ever goes according to plan, and you will always be problem solving and overcoming adversity when you're building a car like this. So, that being said, these are still hot. I can take them, run over here, place them on the parts cooler 9000, turn it on, and in a few minutes those will be cool, and we can put them back in the car and see about mounting this. I pulled the dash out of the car to give myself a little bit better access to the second two studs, as this will have two mounts on the steering column to make it a little bit more solid. So we can see what we have going on here. So we have our two angled mounts that come down in the front, and then if you guys can see up here, right here, I made another plate, and I'm going to take a piece of the 3/4 inch tubing that was on the inside of the steering shaft, notch it, run it up here, cut it to whatever angle lays its center on this plate, and then that will be our rear mount or our firewall side mount. So I think that should make it very solid and not wiggle around or anything like that. Then we will be ready to pull the column out to weld all those pieces together, and I can determine if I want to put a gusset of some sort on this front mount here, as I kind of like the idea of tying the two sides together to make it just that much stronger. So let me go ahead and get started making that little tube, and before long we will be ready to weld this, paint it, and we'll have a completed steering column. The steering column is welded, painted, and reinstalled in the car. So it came out very nice. I'm very happy with the end product. You can see there's the column. You can see a little gusset that I put there with my traditional beauty holes in it. The lower mount is right there if you can see it. Just a simple 2-bolt flange with a tube connecting the steering column tube to that flange, and the rest of it's pretty self-explanatory. So I will go ahead now and reinstall the dash. And once I have the dash reinstalled, I can put the shifter back in, get the interior buttoned back up, aside from needing to clean up all the fiberglass dust, but that can wait for a time that is not right now, as I really want to see what this looks like all back together and test it out now that everything is firmly in place. So let me put you guys back on the cage mount. We'll get that knocked out, and we are almost done with this project. After another day, some very awkward welding positions that you guys saw, and some elbow grease, some sweat equity paid to the car yet again, we have our finished shortened steering column and steering column extension. Now, I'm sure you guys have realized at this point, I like to build just about everything I possibly can for this car, and this was no exception. There were a few options on the market for column extensions, but between wanting to be cheap and wanting to make yet another part myself, this is what we ended up with. So it is real nice and solid in there, and very easy to reach the quick release hub, easy to get on and off, so on and so forth. Well, easy to get on and off with 2 hands, or I guess your dominant hand, but it looks awesome. And the aluminum bits will end up being powder coated. For right now, they're assembled, as I obviously needed to test fit and try everything out, and everything works flawlessly. So I'm very, very happy with this. And looking at it here, everything matches up nicely. The 2 U-joints are phased correctly, so there'll be no binding or anything like that there. And this is another big item off of the list. I know it might seem like a small one, but believe me, this was a big chore to get this to this point. Now back in the car, if I go ahead and put the extension on here, it's brought a new meaning to the phrase "use your head," but we are in a good position. Looking at it from my vantage point, you can see everything that there will be to see on the race pack. So that is also a plus. I really want to be able to see those shift lights, as shifting by ear, especially when everything is happening so quickly in a car like this, it can be quite difficult to do. So I want to eliminate the possibility of me making a mistake, or limit that possibility as much as I can. But this thing is solid, not a whole lot of rock around. Still very easy to turn the wheel. Everything feels very solid. And most importantly, let's see, you guys may be able to laugh at me as I try to egress from the vehicle with one hand. But you can see my legs, no big deal there. And, oh, get out, no problem. No impedance from the shift column, the wheel, anything like that. So in the highly undesirable situation, if the car was on fire or something catastrophic happened and I needed to get out as quickly as possible, simply snatch the quick release off, throw the wheel to the side, and jump out of the car as quickly as you can. And this shortening of the column and everything makes that process just that much easier. Now that we have this project completed, the next order of business is to do the plumbing laundry list. And I'm not exactly planning on releasing a video about that, as watching me go through and figure out all of those lines won't be the most interesting thing in the world. But I'll film some content, or I guess I'll film a video's worth of footage, and if it ends up being interesting enough, or if you guys let me know in the comments of this video if that's something that you'd like to see, and have me go over kind of my thought process and how exactly I determine what angle hose ends I use, so on and so forth, let me know and I will put a video together for you guys. But with all of that being said, that is going to bring this video to a close. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next one.